Hello, everyone from the farms of Delaware. It's the Talkin' Yu-Gi-Oh! Show. I'm your host, Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything. I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful week. It is crazy to think that we are in the middle, or almost in the middle, of October. You know, before we get to all that good stuff, I kind of want to talk about an arc that I recently watched. I'm doing a watch-along currently of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, subbed. We're going to be doing it for all of the shows, about 10 episodes a week. And we just finished the Virtual World arc. And I did a little bit of research, and I wanted to start the episode off with the Virtual World arc. It is an arc that has been heavily criticized over the years for its content, but mostly its placement. I would say that the placement of the Virtual World arc being right smack in the middle of Battle City, specifically breaking up the quarterfinals and semifinals, is a decision that has garnered a lot of criticism and a lot of question marks over the years. Now, there is a few different elements of this I want to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about is actually my overall thoughts on the Virtual World have improved a little bit. My opinions on the Big Five have not, outside of like one or two of them. I think the Big Five are very generic CEO cronies that have similar backstories that I really just don't give a crap about, frankly. But my opinion has greatly gone up on Noah Kaiba, and my opinion has greatly gone up on the end of the Virtual World arc. The Virtual World, of course, is about 21 episodes, I believe. And all in all, the quality of the arc is not as bad as I remember. However, the placement is certainly something that has left me and a lot of people scratching our heads. Why couldn't they wait until after Battle City? Why couldn't they just not do filler? And I decided to look a little bit deeper into the problem. I wanted to see where they were in the manga, where Kazuki Takahashi was in the manga when we got to the Virtual World arc. And I'm going to offer a solution regarding the placement of the Virtual World arc that maybe would have been a little better than what we got, but honestly, it is very complicated. So we're going to just break it down as much as we can. The Virtual World starts at episode 98. It starts right after that Yami Marek versus Bakura and Marek duel, and it lasts 24 episodes. And for those wondering why we even needed to have filler, Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime was rapidly catching up to the source material. It was rapidly catching up to the manga, and you might say, well, how did it catch up so quickly when the anime started in 01 and the manga started in the 90s? A lot of people forget the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga had an entire 60 or so chapters before Duelist Kingdom that Studio Gallop decided not to animate. If you've ever watched Season 0, Death Tea, the Yami Bakura Game World arc, all of the stuff we got in Season 0, which is like 30 episodes worth of content, Studio Gallop said, nah, we're not going to do it. We're going to start at Duelist Kingdom. So already, even though the Yu-Gi-Oh! DM anime started way after the manga, there was already like a lot of episodes and manga source material that they didn't cover, and so they just skipped ahead, and that caused a little bit of an acceleration when looking at the anime versus the manga. So you have the Virtual World, which is 24 episodes, and I wanted to look, where were we? Where were we at episode 98? Like, was it possible for them to just try to wait until the end of Battle City and then do whatever filler arcs they had to do? On March 12th, 2002, episode 98 aired, which was chapter 238 in the manga. And you might ask, where was the manga on March 12th? The manga was on chapter 257 in the middle of that Kaiba versus Yugi semifinals. So in other words, when the Virtual World arc starts, Kaiba and Yugi, their duel in Battle City, their long slog, is still being written by Kazuki Takahashi. And if you say an episode is worth maybe 2 to 3 chapters of a manga, the anime at this point was only 10 episodes behind the manga. Like, it would have caught up to it before the manga Battle City story had a chance to end. And just further proof of that, by the way, episode 122 is when we get back to Battle City, right? Episode 122 is when the four-way duel starts. We're out of the virtual world. That's also chapter 239 in the manga. Well, a day before episode 122 airs, Yugi versus Marek is still being written by Kazuki Takahashi. Battle City isn't even over by the time we get through the entire virtual world arc. So this notion that we could have waited for the virtual world after Battle City just is not possible. For those that are wondering in terms of how many episodes the post-Battle City was, it was 22. It was 22 total episodes. And by the time, we get to episode 144, they're on chapter 278 in the manga. So it certainly was the buffer that was needed. But you've got to remember, what happened after Battle City? Like, let's not forget when Battle City ends in the Duel Monsters anime, we have Doma, which is 40 episodes, and we have the KC Grand Prix, which is another 14 episodes. So after Battle City ends, we still got over a year's worth of filler arcs for the Yu-Gi-Oh! DM anime. So even if in some reality they were able to wait until post-Battle City to do the Noah Virtual World arc, that means we would have gotten 3 straight manga filler arcs, 3 straight anime filler arcs in a row, which I don't know if that really would have been the best decision. So I kind of look at the virtual world and its really unfortunate placement as an unavoidable problem, and I view it very similarly to how I view the Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains recaps. It was a necessary evil. Nobody wants the Vrains recaps to have happened. Nobody wants to watch a recap every 13 episodes for a 30-episode span. Nobody wants the Battle City tournament, one of the strongest arcs in the entire franchise, to get interrupted by a filler arc, but we didn't have a choice. And that's the unfortunate part of it. Now, I will offer something that may have been a little bit of a better solution, but I kind of want to know how you guys feel about this, because I don't know if this would have been a better solution. A lot of people don't realize this, but in the manga, Battle City is technically split up to the Battle City arc and the tournament finals arc. And you might look at that and say, oh, well, that's what the anime did. Battle City Part 1, Battle City Part 2. But that's not the case. The tournament finals arc is actually referring to the quarterfinals and onwards. So the manga splits up Battle City right when the blimp takes off and the quarterfinals are about to begin. Maybe having the Noah Virtual World arc between the Battle City qualifiers and the quarterfinals instead of the semifinals would have been a better decision in breaking up the Battle City tournament. It's more complicated to do that, and that doesn't come without its issues because, again, doing it where they did it, think about it. Rashid is incapacitated. Mai is incapacitated. Bakura is incapacitated. Ashizu no longer has her Millennium Necklace. If you do the Noah arc before the quarterfinals and break it up exactly how the manga broke it up, but how do you include Mai? How do you include Bakura? How do you include Odeon? Like, Yami Marek hasn't taken over yet. And by the way, Yami Marek struggled to get past a door for 10 episodes in the Noah's virtual world arc. So while the Noah arc was great for the was okay for the main cast, was really good for the Kaiba family, they struggled with their excess of characters, and there would have been even more characters to balance if they did it here. That's probably why they waited until right before the semis, because at that point, a lot of the characters that weren't in the main crew were incapacitated, and they didn't have to include them. That's my theory on it. But I feel like this maybe would have been a good breakaway point, but I got to be honest, like the Noah Virtual World, I've been heavily critical in the past for the awful placement of breaking up the greatest tournament in the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. I truly believe that about Battle City. But when you look into it, when you see how close the manga was to the anime, I don't think there was anything else that could have been done besides placing it here. Maybe before the quarters, but they certainly were not going to be able to wait until after Battle City. And by the way, maybe some people think, oh, well, what if they just fleshed out the duels a little bit more? Yugi versus Kaiba is already 7 episodes. That would have been a 9-episode duel. Kaiba versus Joey, the 3rd place duel, that's an anime filler duel. You can even see in that Battle City, semifinal arc post Noah's Virtual World, they're doing things to pad time. So they were clearly in a tricky situation, and I just feel like this was an unavoidable problem when it comes to the Virtual World arc, especially regarding the placement of it, which I think is the biggest criticism of all. But I want to bring in Dak. I want to bring in Cal. Two great people. My friends, how can you have a filler arc break up Battle City? But then when you really break it down, it's like, well, what choice did they have?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It was a tough spot to be in. They obviously didn't really have much they could do without diverting or having some crazy, kind of side, just duels on the blimp. But even that really would have been kind of weird, or just a bunch of like, oh, you're stuck in your room, you can't do anything, kind of stuff. So I mean, I do think them doing kind of the arc itself worked fine, but yeah, I agree the placement is a little tricky. It's a little off. I would have personally probably put it before the quarters. I know you kind of mentioned that having too many characters, but I mean, the way I would have gone around that is leave some of the main crew behind, have 2 split groups, and you could have whoever could be Tristan and Taya and whoever there, or Serenity and Duke, and some of those like kind of characters, mix them up a little bit, whatever. But then you have some of them kind of on the blimp, or kind of investigating kind of the real world aspect, trying to set everybody free. Then of course you have everybody in the virtual world actually competing and doing the virtual world side of things. The arc itself I find is fine. I mean, I agree about the big 5. They're a mixed bag, but Noah himself, and Gozaburo and all that kind of piece for the Kaiba side, definitely a great element, and it makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, most anime has filler to some degree, some worse than others. I mean, you can speak to filler. You're actually somebody who enjoys filler. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people don't like filler because, it's filler, right? It's not really pushing the plot in a direction like too heavily or whatever. It's kind of like doing a side quest in a video game. You don't have to do it, but like the option's there. Unfortunately, when you're watching something, you do have to watch it, or you have no other choice but to watch or wait for it to be done. But no, I always enjoyed filler because I feel like you learn different things about characters that you don't get on like the base storyline a lot of times, and even if it doesn't push things one way or the other, like, wow, that's a cool little fact about this, or a cool little relationship that was built in this arc that maybe doesn't have much to do with your storyline, but you can look back and be like, it wasn't the best, but it was cool how character A and B interacted, and you wouldn't have gotten it if not for some sort of filler arc.
Sure, yeah. And another thing I want to say regarding, because I've also seen this take. Oh, man, I would have rather them take some time off of television, let the manga catch up. But that is not possible in a lot of these situations, because a lot of people don't realize is these shows and companies have TV contracts that require them to be on television, especially for weekly running anime. It's the exact reason why when Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains was in production hell, they couldn't be like, we'll just take a week off. It would break their contract. So what do they have to do? They have to roll out an episode that has about 1 minute of new content that's a recap episode. And then 12 weeks later, they have to do the same thing. 12 weeks later, they have to do the same thing. They can't just take off time. So that wasn't an option either. I'm sure there's going to be some people that think, oh, what if they just took off 6 months to let the manga get ahead? They really couldn't. It's just they made the decision that they were not going to adapt the first 60 chapters of the original manga. And so, no crap, it's going to catch up very, very quickly to the manga source material. Had you adapted the first 60 chapters, you would have been fine. Now, you still would have probably had to do a filler arc, but, you certainly would not have needed to do 3 filler arcs. Maybe just the one big Doma one, but the KC Championship, virtual world, you probably wouldn't have had to do those. You just watched one of the clips from my Talking Yu-Gi-Oh show, which airs every other Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you guys so much for your support. Please leave all your thoughts down below. Long live Yu-Gi-Oh! And I hope you have an amazing day. Take care, guys.